So welcome everybody. Welcome to TRU. Welcome to Theater Resources Unlimited. This is a town hall. We started doing town halls during shutdown. We've always done panels. So what's the difference between a panel and a town hall? For me, a town hall deals with social issues, cultural issues, things that are going on in our world, in our country, in our community that we want to address and want to talk about. Town hall also implies that I want to engage the audience in the conversations. I'm going to give everybody on my lineup of panelists a chance to make an opening statement, but I want to encourage everybody to join the conversation. I started doing the town halls during shutdown online with everything else. And once we were out of shutdown and we were able to actually go out into live spaces without being covered in masks and blankets and whatever else we have that could keep us safe. Oh, come on in, come on in. It's okay, come on in. Yeah, just be careful.
Thank you.
And we realized that we had learned a lot about virtual and about the importance of virtual and the virtual community in the first couple of years of shutdown. I knew nothing about any of this. I've got like things. I'll just call them things. Other people will call it equipment. We have things here. I'm not a tech person. So but with guidance, people got me to understand that in a shutdown, it was more important than ever to have community. So I was able to get myself calm enough to start using Zoom and have a room that people could come into on Fridays. It was originally at 4:30, now it's Fridays at 5 o'clock. We've now done 254 consecutive weeks of those. In between all that, don't let me stop you. In between all that, I've been dedicated to doing a series of town halls. It wasn't originally about DEI and A. Everybody says DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we were taught over the years, but from one of our panels here, one of our town halls, that we must remember to include accessibility, because there's a whole community that doesn't feel included if you're not accessible. So it's DEIA, as far as I'm concerned. Government keeping it at DEI, so I guess you're safe.
Yeah, no problem here.
No, not at all, right?
Hey, drop it up.
Catherine, you can come in. Please come in. I'm just doing introductory mumble jumble. Okay. So I started identifying things that were going on. Shutdown made us aware of things. A lot of people may have been aware of them, but a lot of us were not as acutely aware as we became during shutdown when God sent us to our room to think about what we had done as a human race. And I couldn't help noticing that there was a lot of really bad behavior in our society. People were not treated well. And that's how this started shifting over to really focusing on DEI, DEIA now. Interestingly enough, or luckily enough, we don't get federal funding. So I don't have to stop my DEIA programming. And that also is one of the reasons why we're here tonight. We're going to actually, this is a very important conversation for me, because we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about what we're told we can't talk about. I love the fact that the federal database has wiped off any reference to gay. I'll be the gay representative of it, by the way, if you couldn't tell. But it's so funny because they wiped off all reference to Enola Gay, the famous gay porn star, Enola Gay. You didn't know this? Did anybody?
Airplane, no.
It's an airplane. Yeah, it was the airplane that dropped the atom bomb. Yeah. It's relevant.
Oh, the Enola Gay.
That's what Enola Gay is.
Yeah.
So somehow or other, it's erased from the database. I'm laughing at the stupidity of it all. However, I'm also terrified, and I think a lot of us are here because we're mildly to extremely terrified, somewhere on that scale. I want you to know that I also realized it was not feasible to have every discriminated against community to be represented on this panel, and I reached out and the panel put itself together. It's like basically it's a panel of yeses. Somebody said yes and somebody else said yes and somebody else said yes. It's like, okay, at this point I've got enough speakers to talk about what's going on and what possibly we could do about what's going on. So let me just move this now to my co-facilitator and the vice president of TRU, Cheryl Davis. Cheryl, I want you to introduce yourself and make some introductory remarks as well. Those are my introductory remarks, broad strokes of what I want to cover tonight.
Okay. Well, hello. Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Cheryl.
I'm Cheryl Davis, the Shire retiring vice president of TRU. And I'm also, by my day career, is the general counsel of the Authors Guild. Many of us in the arts have a day job. I have a day career. And I bring that up because the import of DEI on authors, writers, and nonprofits is very present in my day career status. We've had a couple of webinars on how it impacts authors applying for for NEA grants. And we are continuing to monitor and see what goes on in that area. There are also a couple of lawsuits going on. So as I said, I'm very involved in this, both personally and professionally.
So I'm going to go back and forth through Zoom to live, and I'm going to go to Nicolette. Nicolette here representing the Native American indigenous population community.
Chokla, so Chokla, Nicolette Blount, Chickasaw. Hello, my name is Nicolette Blount, and I am Chickasaw, and I'm honored to be here and see if I can contribute in any way. There was an AAPAC report that came out in 2018, 2019 that showed that Native Americans were basically not on Broadway. I mean, we've had some since then, but
One play.
Yes, one play, and also we have a few actors out there, but this report said there were like 0. And whether it's 100% true, margin of error, whatever, but definitely Native Americans have not been showcased at all off Broadway in comparison to everything else. And that is something that's going on. And I feel like Native Americans are doing theater. I mean, we have over 20 some out theaters throughout the United States, but it's almost like, okay, you just do your plays over there because we don't relate to them. So do we really want to hear them? And something has to change in that. And I am a musical theater writer and a producer and sometimes performer. So thanks for having me.
Thanks. I'm going to ask some more specific questions as we go along. We're going to go to Zoom again. Let's go to Ariel.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ariel Estrada. My pronouns are he, him, his, sha. I am here in New York City on Lenape land. And for those of you who may be visually impaired, I am a middle-aged Filipino-American man with graying hair. You may see a couple cats around me, and I've got my living space behind me. I'm in a dark blue t-shirt. I am in terms of my DEI work, I'm currently the chair of the DEI committee for Episcopal Actors Guild, and I've done various DEI positions throughout pretty much every one of my jobs in my professional career. But specifically, the one that's of interest to tonight is I was part of a 2-person team for 3 years at Actors Equity in the DEI department over there. And I'm also a fellow in Arts Equity. And I'm very proud to be here tonight, and I hope I have something good to say. I certainly don't have a lot good to say about our current administration. Hopefully that won't get me arrested later on or disappeared.
At least not this,
Happy
not
note.
yet.
On that happy note, back to you, Bob.
But what it will do, it will make YouTube um, flag this video as being nothing that I can promote. This has happened to me already. YouTube flags my videos and says you can't advertise this. You can show it on YouTube, but we can't promote it. So anyway, so now we're going to turn to a representative of a larger community. Jay, you're really non-binary, but you can also talk in terms of the trans experience because you know and work with a lot. But I will just go on record as saying, congratulations on being the first people attacked. You held that distinction. I think that you're the most vulnerable population we have actually. It's kind of it depends on how you define vulnerability. What opening statement would you like to make about what's going on in terms of your community?
Well, first I'll say, hi, I'm Jay. I use they, them pronouns. I do identify as non-binary. I also identify as trans.
Oh, you do?
So that's that. I would say I work as the literary manager for Parity Productions, which is a theater company championing the work of women, trans, gender expansive, and intersex artists. And I would say that we have already started in terms of someone mentioned grants earlier.
I did.
We've already had to sort of choose very carefully which grants we're applying to because we are no longer eligible due to promoting gender ideology. And yeah, I mean, I would say there definitely is a crisis for and impacting the trans community right now. It is mostly and primarily a crisis against Black trans femme people. And so I can't speak to that because I'm a white person and I'm a trans masculine person. I'm not a trans femme person. But I hope that everyone here and there can take away from this, at least that we should be researching Black trans femme artists and trans femme artists of color in general to be uplifting at this time.
Thank you. We'll come back to a lot of these points. Let's move to Jorge Huerta, my new best friend.
Thank you all for being here. It's really an honor, and it's a wonderful opportunity to learn from every one of you and hopefully share some of my experiences. As I said earlier, when we were waiting for everybody, that I completed my PhD in dramatic art at UC Santa Barbara in 1974 and became the first Chicano, Mexican American, who was studying and researching and directing theater as opposed to dramatic literature in Spanish. So it was a wide open field. I'm always asked to talk about the Chicana. There's no one of us. As we all know, all of our groups, none of our groups are monolithic, and not everybody is on the same side. And Thanksgiving dinners are going to get worse and worse if this shit continues. So nonetheless, it's my goal has always been to spread the word about who we as Mexican Americans, and particularly in the Southwest, of course, but we're everywhere. We've been everywhere. But we include all of the other Latinx or Latine people in our struggle to bring theater to our communities. And that's what I've been doing, teaching, directing, and mentoring. And so it's important to hear what your tactics are and to share with you some of the tactics that I learned early on how to reach an audience that doesn't necessarily know you exist. Thank you.
Thanks, Jorge. Anita, that's
hi.
your turn.
Anita Hollander, she, her, hers. I am a one-legged actress and singer and musician and composer. And I'm going to do a little math. I started my career 61 years ago as an 8-year-old in professional theater. 43 of those years I've had one leg. And 48 years of those, I've had a disability. So I've been a disabled actor in theater all of this time. And in fact, when my leg was amputated from cancer, I went back to rehearsals 2 weeks later, and I opened in the show 4 weeks after the amputation. So here's the thing. Here's why I said all those numbers. I've never really had a problem with the fact that nobody expected anything from me. Nobody expected me to have a career. I had low expectations, but it didn't matter because I just kept doing what I was doing. And I think we need to think about that, all of us. First of all, disability is the one of these diversity that anyone can join at any moment. If you choke in this room right now, you could become disabled. If you trip on the step there, if you walk outside and get hit by a cab, you are part of the club. And it happens to people of all colors, sizes, shapes, sexual orientation, any group. And so this is why I've been an advocate for about all those 48 years, because the minute I became disabled, first it was a paralyzed leg with a brace, but I was touring in Europe with a theater company, and every time I got a job, I was an advocate for people with disabilities, because I was always the only person with a disability in the show, or writing the music, or being the vocal coach, or singing the concerts. And I was one of the, we don't really know if I was this, but the first person to get a cabaret show about losing your leg to cancer. Because, and when I did it, people were going, maybe that's not the right venue for this show, but it turned out to be just fine. And now everybody tells their story in a cabaret act, no matter what their story is. But this is the thing. First of all, D.E.I.A, in case anybody doesn't know, is diversity, equity, inclusion. And the A is in dispute as to access or accessibility, because access can mean access for everybody, access to theater, access to film, access to television. But accessibility is, and if a deaf person came on the town hall right now, wouldn't understand what was going on. But we can't, we don't always have the ability or the budget or the whatever. I mean, if there's, and with DEIA being swept away, it becomes less possible to include everybody, to have everybody be a part of it. But I realized this about a week ago, I'm called the Velvet Hammer because I do have hope. And I don't come on negative or angry, not because I don't feel fear, and not because I don't feel upset about stuff and get mad about stuff. The thing is, for 40 years, I've been working as national chair. I was national chair of performers with disabilities for SAG-AFTRA, and worked with Actors Equity and the Schubert organization, and I mean, lots, all the different guilds I've worked with. And we just can't stop working on it. But because of the work, the advocacy we've done, we've improved performers with disabilities on television. We've tripled the employment of actors and performers with disabilities on television since 2020. So, but since 2009, when we had a campaign, and I mean, we can talk about that, the details later, but there's always something we can do. It's what we can't do, and you've heard this probably way too much, is give up. Because when we do, and this is my problem, it's like, I want to help everybody, and it's like I don't have enough energy. I'm a mom and a grandma, and even my mom, my 92-year-old mom, is on the Zoom because she's so brilliant. She's an author and all that stuff. Anyway, I just think that that's the thing that we have to remember, is that we have to be the ones who do it. We can't wait for someone, particularly in Washington, to give us anything. And I've known this all along. So this is no surprise, except that it's so horrific. And particularly the people with disabilities whose health is going to go straight down. So we can't give up. We have to fight on so many levels to protect ourselves and to help others and keep people alive, honestly.
You included a point in there that, you included a point that I was going to come back to, which is I'm going to ask everybody. I'm going to come to Janelle in a second, but I was going to ask everybody in what ways is what's happening right now affecting your community specifically. And then after that, we're gonna involve the room. Janelle, you are up at bat now. Janelle, my board member and friend.
Yes, I just want to thank all the fellow panelists and the guests that are taking time out to have this conversation. I mean, Bob and I have been sort of co-commiserating in phone calls as this road is upon us, and so it's good to have some more people along the journey to just talk it out loud. And honestly, I'm the co-founder along with Cheryl and Scott of TRU Diversity, and I'm hearkening back to. I'm also like a wordsmith and a dramaturg. So we took a lot of time in deciding what we were going to call our newfound club. And it was a lot of, back and forth. And we settled on TRU Diversity because we understood the strength in numbers, in allyship, in coming together. Part of what is happening now is wanting to isolate us to make us feel weaker. Stay encouraged, soldiers. This is the battle. Stay encouraged, stay spirited. This is the mission ahead of us. So just thank you all and keep fighting.
Thanks, Janelle. Ariel, does your cat want to say a few opening words?
So you all, especially now.
So I'm going to go to my second important question, which is, and some of it has been answered, but given what's happening with the new administration, given the just backpedaling on the whole idea of DEI, they don't even know what an A is. You know that, right?
Oh no, they've never heard of it.
Yeah, they have no idea.
No A.
Yeah, there's no A. Lucky you in some ways, but it's that, and also the entire mania about gender, using non-binary gender. What's the phrase?
Yes, I think what you're saying is using gendered language.
Yeah, gendered language, exactly. They're nuts about it. They're crazy. They've gone off the deep end about it.
Yeah.
And we're supposed to feel bad for making them feel so bad. All right. So that's the world we're in. So given what we're going through right now, and given what the tenor is of the people in power, the voice that we're hearing from them, how is this making your situation in your community different? I don't want to say worse. I mean, how is it changing? How is it changing what you've been doing, all the work that you've been doing? Okay, Jorge immediately raises his hand.
In reality, I don't think any of us only represent one aspect of what's being fought, of what they're trying to destroy. I'm Latin. My relatives who were born here I could be deported. I mean, the deportation efforts, which thankfully, one good news, and it's always look for the good news because we can't live in a gloom. It'll stop us, as has already been said. We've got to keep fighting. Roberts finally got a spine and told the president that he could not, send all of those people back to a prison in El Salvador or wherever it is, who were they're Venezolanos. They're from Venezuela, and they're not all gang members, and so that's one of our communities. My other community is the
and Roberts also told Trump today that he can't impeach a judge.
That's what I'm talking about, because the judge declared that he could not, that they could not do that using a law from 1800s to deport somebody as an alien enemy like they did with the Japanese community when I was born. Anyway, so the bottom line for me is that I can't just say I represent the senior citizens. Medicaid, Medicare, it is affecting everybody. And that's just one of the issues that we have. But what I tell my students, and I will say, and I'm hearing it here as well, we have to choose our battles. The young people think they can go to every single rally and do this and do that. No, we lose energy if we just try to do everything. And especially when one is a senior citizen, we can't do everything, we can't march, but we can write. My whole MO has been to infiltrate. I became the first Chicano to get a professorship in a theater department in the world. And now the numbers are so high. And so I'm credited with having started that movement in the academy. Luis Valdez started the Chicano theater movement, which we followed. And so now it's an amazing growth, but it still isn't good enough at all, in terms of theater. But we all have various constituencies.
Anyone else want to jump in with how the current administration is affecting your community?
I know there's been some tribal things. John, are you on here? Could you speak to that?
John Scott?
Yeah. You're on mute. I don't know if you're
Can
on
we-
Bill.
There we go.
May not have a good connection either. He's from North Carolina. I know there's been some tribal fears. There's been some things that they've been afraid of, and also I think there was something, I don't stay up to date on the politics, but I know there were some tribal issues that they were worried about for a while. They've been worried about governmental powers coming in and saying, oh, you're only this much native, you can't be on the reservation. And they're always afraid of things like that coming down the pike. But there was something recently with tribal stuff, but I know there's been definitely affecting our tribal plans.
At least they can't send you back to your old country.
Yeah. I mean, I guess they could tell us all to go live on the tribe that we're from. I think that was one of the fears I had heard, is that, but I know there's been a lot of political things with the tribes lately and the government.
There have been indigenous Americans deported to South America because they were brown, and they were assumed that they were South American.
I did see that.
So yeah.
So okay. So it is happening.
Brown is a crime.
It is happening.
I'm not the be all end all native, so just so you guys know, I'm not speaking for everybody. It's just some things that I had heard, and
you touched on some of this already, but we can just expand on it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's, as I mentioned, something happening in the theater community is and nonprofit world is grant making organizations are saying you can't do any programming that has gender ideology, which means nothing, but they think it means you can't you can't do trans stuff. And I mean, to be honest, violence against trans people is nothing new. It's been going on for a long time. It's been going on under literally every administration that's ever happened, because there have been trans people since the first administration. They just weren't allowed to be openly trans. And so, but this administration, I would say, is making it worse because they're giving people who want to be violent against trans people, they're giving them legal recourse, and they're giving them a reason to be publicly transphobic, and they're normalizing transphobia, because there were maybe 2 or 3 years where transphobia was a little bit starting to decline or even out, and then this administration took over and transphobia has just been skyrocketing. And again, it's not that transphobia is skyrocketing, it's that legalized transphobia and public transphobia is skyrocketing. And I think for trans people, we sort of know that this is nothing new. And like you said, we need to just keep going. And yeah, I mean, that's feel like I don't know how to end what I'm saying, but
Well, because there isn't an end yet.
yeah, I got like lost a little bit. But
No.
It's okay. Okay, thank you. It's okay. I'm there with you. Brain doesn't always work.
Yeah. So basically, the overall problem that deals with your community as well is that certain things are being normalized that have been previously been considered abhorrent. We've gone from abhorrent to normalized, and I will admit right now on camera to the world that most of us here feel a certain way, and I know that there are other people who don't feel the same way that we do. I understand that. I am open to conversations. I'm praying for conversations with people who disagree with us. I'm praying for the opportunity for people who don't need to hear this to hear it, who don't want to hear this to hear it. So I will move. I'm going to actually ask. I know somebody in the room said they have a very different point of view on this. It's Kevin Lynch. Kevin, do you want to share with us your feelings? And have we upset you?
No, I mean I've been vocal about a lot of this stuff, especially with, and I'm a musician, I'm a pianist, I'm, trying to work on Broadway, mostly in the musical theater, in the pits and stuff. I've sat in on a few shows and stuff, but like I have a counter to a lot of this, and I really wish, uh, you know, we really need to bridge the gap as just a community of people between, everybody. It's like regardless of race and gender and ideology or whatever, I really, I treat everybody the way I want to be treated, which is something I was taught growing up in elementary school. It's like treat others how you want to be treated. Now, I understand that a lot of people don't do that, which is why we have to have groups that are here to protect people that feel they've been disenfranchised or that are being treated differently for their race, because there are people that are treated differently. I'm not one of those people that do that, but I think groups like this and conversations like this are important. And for me, there's been an organization that is, I feel, is actively discriminating against cis white men, and on the basis that, like, oh, cis white men have been given all the opportunities and now it's someone else's turn to take a seat at the table. And it's like, but I haven't been given that opportunity yet. And so I feel, for me, I'm being kept out of things, and I'm being kept out of opportunities, and then told that I should sit there and take it. And and it feels like a very condescending, hostile environment anytime I challenge it or just ask the question, and I'll get blocked from communities and people will stop talking to me. And it's like, I can't, it's like, I thought this was supposed to be a space for all voices to be heard, even the ones you don't agree with. Like you don't have to agree with me. We don't have to agree politically, but at least we could have like civil discourse and be like, you know what? Like, yes, I feel that I have friends that have been told they can't be part of theater because, it's like, well, a woman can't do that role. And it's like, well, why not? You know, why can't they?
So
Well, a
Kevin,
black person can't play that actor. Then
Kevin,
why not? Like, yes, sorry.
Kevin, you made a point, and I don't disagree with anything you say. I completely accept what you're saying, and I think most of us have compassion for what you're going. The problem that we're having is not with you. The problem we're having is with the white supremacist mentality that seems to be infecting a lot of the white males in our country, which basically doesn't treat people like they want to be like they would want to be treated, because they consider other people other. They just consider the core issue is the other. We have fear of other. So anybody that doesn't look and sound and believe the same things that some of our leaders believe and think and look like are basically suppressed. They're being beaten down. We're all being beaten down. All of us representing any of the communities that we're talking about tonight, we all feel like we're being diminished.
What is the difference between being oppressed and being invisible? invisibilized, beyond other, just you don't exist. As an old person, I'm invisible as an old man. Literally, talk to your grandparents. It's so interesting. And I'm not saying that that's bad. At least they're not throwing things at me, but I want to hear more from Kevin. My students, Kevin, I've had students, of course, from all colors at a public UC San Diego. And the white boys, the white young men would say, well, I'm not like that. I said, well, are you a Rockefeller? And even if you are, you didn't do it. They take on the idea that you're guilty because you're a white man. That's horrible. But every movement starts out with that idea. The Chicano movement initially, I hate to say, was very racist. Very racist. All the white people were bad. It was just general and horrible, horrible distortions. And these people, yeah, they'd been oppressed. But nonetheless, what Kevin is saying is exactly. The Chicano theater the movement was inspired by Luis Valdez, Teatro Campesino, Zoot Suit, and etc. And he quoted a poem that uses the term In Lakesh. And In Lakesh is Maya Quiche for you are my other me. If I do harm to you, I do harm to myself. If I do good to you, I do good to myself. In Lakesh. It's a very simple phrase. And the Marxists, we'd have festivals all over Latin America. And there was a lot of activity back then in the 70s and 80s and onward, against the colonizers. And the Marxists just threw their hands up. What are you talking about? How can we say Lakesh when they're killing our people? La, la, la. But it's about being human. You're lucky, Kevin, that you were raised by parents who taught you to respect other people. But you're not the enemy. Nobody's the enemy. They just have different ideas. I mean, there are people in my family who call themselves Christian, they're brown and they're following white supremacists because they want to be white. That's
yes, it.
I wanted to mention the idea of the idea when a law gets made that excludes people, or that when our
Constitution,
when our government that makes a point of saying that. In other words, I don't think there's ever been a law since the creation of the Constitution that said white men will not have a vote. White men are only this percentage of a human. We haven't had that. So this is where people get left out, left behind, invisible, because as a country, this is where discrimination is seen. And so what we're viewing right now is people wanting to turn back the clock and turn back laws that helped us all work together, to have an opportunity, which is what people came to America for, which is what many people came to. Not everybody came to America. Some were already here.
So, but one of the things that we need to figure out, and we won't necessarily figure it out today, is what is it that was within our country that's underneath all of this that has created what's happening now? Because you have not just a president who's defying law, but you have people that are complicit with him, and more. It's everybody's joined the Trump bandwagon. I can't believe that they're all horrible people. I mean, they can't be. God wouldn't let that happen.
As a person,
the devil made it. The devil let it happen, not God.
Okay,
Right.
Andrea.
Well, there is a very long game that's been played for the last 40 years. The Federalist Society was something that was started in the 80s, and it sort of started in law schools, and these conservative voices, backed by a lot of money, and they used to be very hidden. But, because the 60s, 70s was a very explosive time of sort of freedom, and some bad things happened, like things like the Indian Liberation Army and all that kind of stuff, where anybody remembers that kind of stuff. But in any event, it really alarmed these conservative voices, and they sort of started in the law schools by recruiting young people who were in law school at the time, sussing out who they could develop as conservative voices. And they played a very long game because the overriding system in our country is the legal system. We depend on the legal system for justice. And it's been a very long game. And for some reason, at this point in time, all of these elements, have kind of coalesced, and they've developed enough power, state courts, local courts, and certainly now in the Supreme Court. So this has been a very determined movement. It's like a juggernaut backed by a lot of money. And it's quite a situation.
Okay,
and all they care about,
all
they care about is their point of view. They're not afraid of anybody else. And this is a moment in time when they seem to have the levers in their power. But it's been a long journey.
I do want to come back to this, but I want to
talk to Fran on the Zoom, wants to talk for a while now. She's been raising her hand.
Fran Handman.
Fran.
Okay.
My only point is that
no, Andrea, you have to stop because I just want to give everybody a chance. Fran.
Okay, the thing that disturbs me is I think it's terribly important for us to know all of these horrible things that are being done by this maniac. But we have to put pressure on the media to cover the pushback because we don't get enough coverage. If you don't listen to Rachel Maddow, you don't know what's going on, who's doing what. And what happens is you get people who feel helpless and hopeless. And there's a lot we can do. I mean, some of us can't go out there and march in the protests, and we don't have large sums of money. But we can.
Fran, I think you and Jorge would have a great time sitting home together, not marching.
Sorry?
We'll get scooters.
Tara.
Before we go to Tara, I want to come back. I want to fill in a few gaps and then come back to the audience participation because I didn't do what I said I was going to do. Ariel, I haven't really had a chance to hear from you how what's going on currently is affecting the Asian community. I can't remember the initials that drives me crazy. AANHPI.
Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander. So far, it's not been great. We're fully expecting to. I mean, in this last administration, we all saw the effects of what one single terrible thing that he says can affect an entire community. And he has absolutely said anti-Asian and anti-Sino rhetoric in the past. And I have no doubt that he will again, because he loves scapegoating us in any way possible. I know that there's a lot of prep happening. There have been a lot of deportations of Asian nationals in the country so far, because they don't, as in terms of ICE raiding several Asian communities, right? It's quieter there, just culturally. They don't like Asian communities are generally fairly quiet when things like this happen, but there are also many organizations that have been working to stop that as well. In terms of, I've been listening to a lot of what folks are saying, and I absolutely agree that this is no time to give up. This is no time to stop, and that we definitely need to lean in to what we're doing. In one of my many hats that I wear to support my acting habit, I also work in development for an organization called Benvenuti Arts, as well as a freelance grant writer. And one of the things we're definitely two things I'm seeing. Many of the larger foundations are not wanting to meet over Zoom. And I wish that were a joke, but they're not wanting to meet over Zoom because they're afraid of being surveilled. or having the conversations recorded. There are also there's a big push right now for depending on the organization, and I'm talking mostly about private foundations right now. They of course are experiencing lots of what's the word, shrinking of their own budgets, right? As the effects of what's happening with the NEA and are start to trickle downward, right? But there's also a real push to try to get money out as quickly as possible to many communities, because we know that if things, I mean, we're only less than 3 months into this administration, and there's already been a spectacular amount of destruction that I don't know how much we can come back from, at least in my lifetime. And the likelihood of it getting worse is high. So many funding organizations are, and I'm one of those people, in terms of trying to convince funders to give the money now, let's get it out now, so that we can have the money when things get rough, which they will.
Okay, thanks. And I want to also hear what both Cheryl and Janelle have to say about how things have perhaps worsened or just changed, or what's happened since January 20th, from your point of view.
Well, being of Caribbean descent, first generation, Trinidad and Venezuela, I feel like I'm in the zeitgeist of watching immigration basically disintegrate before our eyes. And I think about our global presence in the world. You know, right after the election, I actually was in Trinidad, and there were so many people who were so concerned about America and what we symbolize to the rest of the world. And they are so concerned about us. They're like, you know, some of my friends were like, "Do you need to seek asylum?" Like, you know, I never thought in a million years that America would be in this position, right? You know, when I was young, my parents filed for so many friends and relatives to come to America because it was the beacon of possibility, opportunity, and diversity. And so in this time period of seeing things sort of reverse themselves, it's sort of like, how do you hold on to the foundation of the things that you know give you sustenance, give you balance? Those are the things that I come back to, the gift of the arts and creativity, because as you say, Bob, we have a really unique position of being able to get to people about reminding them about the human experience and what that is that we are all sharing. And, you know, back to Kevin's, you know, sharing. Thank you, Kevin, so much for sharing. I think that the complexity of this issue is that whenever we are centering ourselves in thinking about lack, it opens an entry window for people to really start questioning their value. And that's the danger of the place that we are in. Because once you open that door, person starts to think of their lack, and they're coming from that place. So the arts is a place where we can fill people up to remind them about their value. So those are the things that I'm looking to.
Good. Yeah, I'd love to hear from Kevin.
But I want to say at some point I want to actually examine what you were talking about invisibility. Are we heading towards invisibility? I guess that is the subtext for a lot of what's going on. Is trying to make the other us invisible. Okay.
I just want to say Kevin is a very good friend of mine, and I really appreciate you guys giving him this opportunity to speak. I've talked with him at length about his views and how he feels about things. And I'm one of these people that I'm like always in the middle of everything, like how I believe, like everything. I mean, I'm white, I'm also Native, like I am in the middle of literally everything. And even in politics and like everything, this is why I try not to get political, but I just really appreciate you guys giving him the space to talk, because, you know, everyone has different opinions and we should all be talking about them and having these open discussions. And I think we all should be, if we all just like, in Native community, it's about us. It's not about you. It's not about I. It's about us. And if we all thought more about us as a country, us as theater makers, us, instead of you and them, and try and find like the middle ground with all that, I think we'd be a much better nation. I know that's not the situation right now, sadly, but anyways, I love you, Kevin.
They're trying to distract us. They keep throwing these things at us, and by distracting us, we forget our goal, which is to fight, which is to find ways to express ourselves. And we have, everybody here is expressing themselves. When the farm workers movement started, these people had never trained. They were real striking farm workers, and Luis Valdez and his troupe created what are called actos, sketches, like the San Francisco Mime Troupe, which the young people have never heard of. But Marx and Comedia del Arte meet in the San Francisco Mime Troupe. The Chicano theater picks it up, and we learned how to make people laugh about the situation, because Luis Valdez said, we have to laugh when you think about all the tragedy. Comedy is a healer, you know, so we could create little actos and present them at the old folks' homes, present them wherever somebody's interested in listening to us. I've never had a conversation with a Kevin since all of this happened. I would love to hear because he's here. That's fearless, Kevin.
I mean, to be honest, I've been really hesitant talking and coming into the group because I feel there's like animosity or like anxiety. Like I get anxiety really bad, and so like, you know, I have a YouTube channel and I post a lot of stuff on there about topics like this. But it's like, for me, you know, I just I feel like we have to work together as a human race. I mean, like I'm having private convos with people about Trump and stuff, and it's like we need to bridge the gap and learn to see, because there's a reason why he won. Like I didn't vote for him, but there's a reason this man is there. There's a reason people in our country somewhere feel that they're not being heard, which is why there's so much, it's so Republican. And this is what happens in government. It swings from one side to the other. And I feel we really need to have a conversation. Like conversations are uncomfortable, and I'm uncomfortable talking about this in a room filled with a lot of people who probably aren't with a lot of what I say on my platforms. But I'm like, I want to have a conversation. Like I want to hear and learn why people feel the way they feel and what their stories are and what's going on for them. And you know, because there are people that have had things happen to them in that shape their experience, you know, of the world. And the fact that we could all be in this group right now, I feel we're already in a very privileged place to be able to have a dialogue and share across the internet without, like, you know, someone barging in and freaking arresting us or something. You know what I mean? We're still in a very good space, I feel like, to be able to share. But I just want to open the floor more. Yeah.
So Kevin, I think that all of us are with you. I don't know, I can't speak for everyone, but I suspect that everybody understands where you're coming from and what you're saying. And I couldn't agree more. The reason why we do this is for conversation. I do these town halls so we can have conversations. I don't have answers. I don't necessarily know what to do. I'm hearing some answers from some of you, which is great. But I just think that it's important to talk, and it's important to talk and also to listen. So it wasn't anything extraordinary that I wanted to hear you and I wanted to hear what you had to say. I was concerned. I didn't know what your views were going to be. I'm so glad that you weren't aggressive or hostile about it. You were open and honest, and thank you for that. I want to give everybody a chance, though. I know Tara's poor virtual hand must be like exhausted by that.
I'm very tired, and I got so many points, and the more I hear everyone talk, the more I have to say. I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't possibly hit all these points. So, but I did want to say something in support of what Kevin was saying, and I think kind of the gist of what we're all kind of talking about is, if we could talk it to death, we can exhaust ourselves, because there's always going to be a new thing to focus on and get outraged, and it's so easy to be divided. But what it really comes down to, if like we need to focus, it's respect. No matter, we don't, like Kevin said, we don't need to overanalyze Trump supporters. I have plenty that I'm close to, that I love and care about, and I don't like them to be spoken badly about either. And I think it just comes down to like respect. We may be feeling very disrespected in how we self-identify, and it may not just be how we self-identify, it may be how others are identifying us. And I think that's where the other comes in, where it is very important to self-identify. They don't want us to self-identify. They want us to go away and be invisible. They want the identities that I assume most of us, if not all of us in this room, are proud of, our identities that may be different from theirs. And there's nothing wrong with that. But we don't think there's anything wrong with that. They may not want to be a part of the disability group, or I have a friend who is of a certain race. She's very prejudiced against other people in her own race. She doesn't identify herself as that. And so I think that that's where identity really comes into it. Who are we letting define who we are? Now, they may want to define us, and I think it's important not to let them do that. But also, when they are trying to make us disappear, I guess I'm thinking, well, how can we use that as part of our strategy? Because when you are invisible, there is kind of a cloak of invisibility. How much productivity, how much advancement can we get by becoming invisible in a way where we don't disappear forever, but we do the work in our invisibility? We are respectful of others in their identities that may be different from ours, and we teach them how to be respectful of us and our identities, whether they're identities that are visible to the eye or there are identities that are assumed. I think that just trying to focus on what we can actually accomplish so we don't exhaust ourselves, and really focus on respecting other people and helping them to be able to respect us, and not just our identity, but maybe to get them to respect us, maybe we have to, not self-identify, but like take the identity out of it. Because that's what they want to do. They want to take all identity away and say, well, you can't say race, because if you say race, that's racist. Well, I was raised that way. I was raised in a very Caucasian environment where if you said race, that was racist. That's what I was learned growing up, and that's what a lot of the country still believes. I'm sure of it. And I've learned differently, that you have to identify, you have to see race, because if you don't see race, you don't see the inequality that may be associated with it. And so I think.
Okay, Tara.
No, thank you.
I love everything you're saying. My job as a facilitator is to make sure that everybody gets a chance to speak.
Thank you.
The only thing I wanted to say that I thought of while you were saying is that one of my problems, and maybe other people's problems, is that I'm born and raised American. I've always been proud to be American. I've always identified the strength of America as being diversity. And all of a sudden I'm told that I've spent my entire lifetime believing the wrong thing. That's disturbing to me. That's really disturbing to me. Coolidge Harris says, we're in a very complex time, and it begins with, oops, I lost it. It dropped off.
We're in a very complex time, and it begins with open expression.
Okay. Cheryl, was there anything you wanted to add to the conversation before I call on John Goldsberry's the next hand up?
Sure. I wanted to repeat what some folks were saying in terms of keeping our powder dry and maintaining, focusing picking our battles. Because I do believe that is a strong part of their strategy, is to throw so much shit at the wall and see what sticks and just tire people out. And I think that what's important is for us to focus on whatever is of key concern to ourselves and say, like, okay, this is the issue that I myself can focus on, and kind of leave other things to other people, but say, this is like what I'm going to work on. And also to remember the power of words, the power of the arts, because that's what fucking terrifies them about us, is that we have creativity. Arts can speak to people's souls. Words have such power. That's why they're trying to say these are words you cannot say. So I think those are important things for us to remember. And what just perturbs me so much about the DEI, the anti-DEI efforts, is what Bob was saying about America's strength being in its diversity, but also the cavalier way in which it gets reduced to things like DEI equals didn't earn it. That if you say DEI, that means that, oh, these people automatically, they're not qualified. They just got it because they are Black or gay or trans, whatever. That's the only reason we can look at them and tell they're not qualified. And that's what upsets me so about the 1984-ness.
Yeah.
Very, very Orwell. Orwell warned us, didn't he? He really did.
Well, people should read Prequel by Rachel Maddow, the dear Rachel Maddow. Prequel, this happened before anyway. Oh, there's so much going on over here. I can't keep my mouth shut.
I'm going to call on John Goldsberry, and then I'm so glad that Lorca's going to chime in. So John, what did you want to share? By the way, it's also okay to ask anybody on the panel a question. That becomes conversation. John.
Bear with me. I'm both autistic and have ADHD. So I wrote
you got a chair from Scott Stickles.
Yeah, there you go. Back about 5 years ago, I wrote a musical as part of Ken Davenport's Theater Makers thing. Well, actually, I wrote the musical before that, but I had no idea what to do with it. So that's where Ken Davenport came in. And there was nothing political about it at the time. It has become something completely different just because of the passing of time. And it's made it difficult enough that we're having to move the show from New York to London to protect the cast members of the show. Since we have a 12-year-old transgender boy in the cast, we cannot, for the safety of that child, do the show in the United States. So we're moving our workshop overseas. It's a shame to say that this is not a show about transgenderism. It just happens to be one of the characters in there. He's a fairly major character, but he's very important to the story of the show. But it's not because he's transgender, which is something that community needs. They need stories that are not about how horrible the situation is and how, these are just human beings. We're all human beings. And I think what it came down to, the entire idea of the show is there is no other. They're all trying to divide us into, they're the other ones, that this is us, there's somebody else. But there are no others. And my director, Miss Hazel Jade, has subtitled the show A Big Tent Musical, which I thought was perfect, because that's exactly what it is. This is a show about being human. This is a show about having respect for each other. This is a show about that we're all the same. And it seems tragic that I can't do it in the United States at this time.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Lorca, always glad to hear from you.
Oh, thanks, Bob. So nice to be here. So I came on just the minute that Cheryl wrote what she just said about words. And my theater company, Multi Stages, our subcaption is multicultural, multidisciplinary theater. And when that list came out in the New York Times, multicultural was on the list of what words have to now be removed from, I guess, American discussion. So my company of 27 years is now no longer acceptable because we're multicultural. There's so many things to talk about, obviously, and it's great to hear what everybody has to say. And it's hard not to cry right now, I have to say. It's very difficult not to cry. As a Puerto Rican, Arabic, Jewish, Polish girl, multiculturalism to me is my identity. And it's what frames me and my perspective of the world and my history and my grandparents and the way I grew up as a human being. And I think that for all of us, we have to find, I love what Cheryl said, find your avenue. You didn't say that, but I'm going to say find your avenue and find a way to bring that forward and make change. I formed the company 27 years ago to bring multicultural work to the stage, behind the scenes and in the audience. And we've been doing that. And I'm so excited that we're going to continue to do that. But it's going to be more and more challenging for all of us who have, diversity as a mission in our companies. And I think that we're members of the League of Professional Theater Women, Cheryl and I, and other people that are good friends with Bob. And our mission at that time was advocacy for women and having gender parity. And I think now we need to be adjusting a little bit more and finding other ways to bridge the gaps that are present now and are going to be much more, complicated to find our way through. So I'm going to take that multicultural word and do everything I can with it. And the last thing I wanted to say is that Kate Muth, who's also a member of the League and a wonderful woman, has been touting on Facebook to take all the words that are now on that New York Times list and write haikus, using as many as you can. And she's doing gorgeous work. If you want to check her out, Kate Muth, she's the founder of Neopolitical Cowgirls, and that's her mission. So find your avenue and don't lose heart.
So I have to point out that I didn't realize this. My live audience is at a disadvantage. They don't have a virtual hand. So does anybody want to raise a real hand? I know that Susan Crawford wants to say something.
I would love to respond to what John said.
Okay, go.
John, are you still? I don't know.
Yeah, he's still there.
John, if you're still there, I have a question for you, which is that I'm inferring that you were at another town hall about a year and a half ago about the trans and gender expansive experience in theater, and you asked a question about that musical. Is that correct?
Yes, I was.
Yeah. So just for everyone, John asked, how can we best keep, how can we best support the child in this show? And I'm now hearing that you're taking like actionable steps to really protect this person who's playing this role or this role. And I just want to flag that as like an example for everyone of an actionable step that you can take to support someone, which of course means leaving the country. But yeah, but just, something to think about when you think about how you can best support other identities in marginalized communities is like asking for help. So
okay. Anybody back to the room? Oh, it's Catherine.
Oh, hi.
You have to speak up.
Hi. Hello. One thing I want to say is just as I'm sure everyone.
Well, let me ask. Can you hear her on Zoom?
Yep.
Okay, go for it.
I just want to say that one thing we do know how to do, I think, as artists, and I'm pretty sure everyone in the room are artists, and we probably have all, as artists, experienced being marginalized. As artists, and our whole lives is to, number one, love, and number two, fucking fight. To be heard and to be seen. And I, of course, am white and have been privileged to be an artist, and that is not lost on me. I certainly have been invisible in my life, literally have had to be invisible. But as someone who has been an artist and experienced just being marginalized because of that, I certainly know how to love and how to fight, and I am ready and willing to fucking love, ready and willing to fucking fight. And so thanks for having this discussion. And I'm ready and willing to love and fucking fight for my brothers and sisters who are being marginalized because of their color.
You know, it's funny because marginalized has been a word that we've been using for a long time. There's got to be a new word because
Probably we don't know yet.
we've gone another step. I don't know what's going. It's crazy to me. But and I also want to say to Kevin that, or whoever put it in the chat, I don't think we were all condemning all. I know a couple of us are, but I know I'm not one of the people that is condemning all Trump supporters.
No.
I do believe that there are reasons why they're doing what they're doing.
They're afraid, they're terrified.
Yeah.
Fear of not having, they've been conned.
Ostracized sounds like a good word. Okay. Yeah, and then we're going to get to Susan Crawford.
Yeah, so I think, like you were saying, it starts with us, right? So if we think about moving forward and seeing what we can do ourselves, if funding is being taken away from nonprofits and in the arts and different things like that, figuring out what you can do yourself to help. I started nativetheaterartist.com. I self-fund it. I'm blessed enough to be able to do that. But it's something that showcases Native creatives. And I've actually recently had Hollywood casting agents contact me and be like, do you know a Native creative for this? I'm like, yeah. Shouldn't I charge for this? I don't. But these are things that, like, we need to figure out what we can do to give back and to combat what is going on within our own theatrical community. And also, in addition to that, like, what was I going to say? I lost my train of thought. Okay, so anyways, figuring out what you can do to give back yourself. Oh, also, it starts with, in terms of our stories and representation, a lot of times it starts with producers and the producers being willing to put on these stories that are different. And, you know, I've been working on Savage since 2017 about my Chickasaw great grandmother. Like, it's finding people, the producers need to be willing to tell these stories. And that's a big thing, I think, is finding those people as well. But I do think, like, figuring out what we can do ourselves now, since things have been taken away, we're going to have to, like, fight.
And I just want to say that you know this, but basically one of the things TRU is dedicated to is finding producers from fringe communities to actually take on producing, to develop them, and because they're the ones that are going to have a stake in telling those stories. And the other thing that I have to just say is that it seemed like we were making such progress before this year, such progress. There were really genuine conversations being had about producers coming from different communities and the stories reflecting the actual population of our country. We've been saying this for years. Why doesn't our commercial stage reflect the people that are in our communities?
Exactly.
And now we're being given a big challenge. But all the progress we were making, I don't know if we can keep going or not. We will all try. We can all swear that we will try to keep moving forward with this. Anita.
Yeah, in the interest of, like, what are people doing and what can be done within artists and within theater, and I just was taking some notes. Last October, there was a convening of diverse theater artists in the Catskills. I was part of this, and it was for the President's Committee on Arts and Humanities. It was a committee that was chartered to last until September of 2025. The minute the new administration came in, the committee was thrown away, disbanded. However, last October, you can't take away what we did. in the woods last October with people like Larissa Fast Horse and Chew. We had people who were directors, producers, performers, writers, all those things, all at this gathered together. And I'm sorry, I'm like forgetting people's names, but
Me too.
Working really hard and knowing that the election was like about a week away, but not knowing what the future would be. So it was like, all right, we need to band together. We need to get ourselves ready. And we need to know that no matter what happens, we're still going to be working on this. And Laura Penn was in charge, wonderful director. She's the president of the IATSE, is it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
SDC. SDC.
Oh,
I'm
SDC.
so sorry.
Oh.
That's where my brain is like, but she got in touch with us in January after all of the fuss and said, okay, this is not over. The committee is over, but this group that was working is still going to be working. So that was one of the things that is not going to be over. It's just everybody is like thinking, and it was a think tank of how do we make this work. Within that think tank, things were mentioned, like Theater Breaking Through Barriers is a theater that's totally multicultural, but also highlights performers with disabilities, playwrights and directors.
I was trying to get Nick to come tonight.
I know, we just did a reading last night of Sam, one of Sam's plays. But anyways, I was also trying, but it's just too much. But Theater Breaking Through Barriers went to Geneva, to the United Nations, with plays that we were commissioned to write about disaster risk reduction, how to protect people all over the world when we have these hurricanes, floods. It had nothing to do with theater, but theater was what gave people the idea of what they could do in Nigeria to help somebody who's in a wheelchair and couldn't get out and was drowned. You know what I mean? It's like, Theater Breaking Through Barriers is a great thing because it shows where theater can affect change throughout the world, and it's actively doing that. Sam Hunter, that was the one who's at
they did 4 weeks of them, four different plays.
And this was the third one last night. I directed one last night, but anyways, it's like all these connections of how we are more powerful. You've said this. You've said this, that we have this power to change people's lives, because if you just make a lecture or a PowerPoint, people fall asleep. And we had people from all over the world in Geneva, and also here in the UN in New York, we did something on universal design, which is good for everyone. Ramps and elevators are good for everybody, not just people with disabilities. And we did a play, and it was funny, and we had a song, and people sat forward. They still had their translation things on the ears, but they were laughing. They were, the message reached people better. We had people from all over the world coming up to him going, we need to have you come and do this, because it got the message across through theater. And that was one of the things that I talked to the President's Committee, now defunct, about this stuff. Another thing, I'm commissioned to write music for the University of Alabama in Birmingham, which is happening we're working on right now, to take stories of people with disabilities from all over the world and put it on the stage to, and again, diverse cast, diverse writers, and put it on the stage for greater understanding, because understanding is where we start to get better at this diversity thing. It's like if we don't understand, and we don't want to understand, we're afraid of somebody, this is the thing. Two other things, and then I'll shut up. Easter Seals Disability Film Challenge. The films that you make a 5-minute film in April, and these films are now all over the world and getting awards and getting attention. And again, with diverse casts. The films I've made have all been diverse casts of different colors, different size, shape, whatever, and different genders, all of these things. So that, and now now Hollywood's listening, and the film industry is listening. And lastly, Real Abilities Film Festival, which also sends these films all over the world. And in fact, my film just was screened in Moscow, because in Moscow they have a diversity and disability film festival, because what we hear about is what's horrible. And this woman, Denise Rosa, who went from America, married a Russian, went there, and she has this diversity film festival that's for people all over the world. It's like, we have to understand that it's not, they're bad, we're good, they're evil, we're the best. It's not like that. And the more we get involved with our art, with the creativity that we have, I really think it's going to save a lot of people if we do that.
The thing that people have heard me say before is basically politics is where people go to fight, art is where people go to listen to each other.
I love that.
So that's kind of to put an underline under what you're saying. We're running out of time, but I want to get to Susan, then Cheryl, then Tara. But
Nobody
we have somebody in the room.
Did you also want to speak? You had your I thought you were pointing at
Okay, Katrine.
You can pick everybody else. It's fine.
Susan's been waiting a long time.
Wait, Susan's been waiting a long time. Susan's back and forth between screen and room.
Yeah. Susan.
Susan, thank you.
I know.
So this will intersect with politics, where you can go to fight. So to Andrea, she was talking about the 1980s. This movement actually goes back further to the Powell Memo of the early 1970s. So I urge you to look that up. It's very short, but it's set in motion the whole dominionist movement that has led now to this Christian nationalist movement that we are up against. Okay, the second is, please join your local political club. I'm not making any assumptions about which one you would join, but join it, because that's where the endorsements for people who run in the primaries happen. And when those endorsements are made, often that person emerges. And sometimes we end up with mayors or whomsoever that are not quite the people who we meant to have. And finally, I'll say,
Look what you're talking about.
finally, I'll say Trump and Bernie supporters overlapped mightily in both 2016 and 2020. They were interviewed on MSNBC and said, if Bernie had been in the race, I would have voted for him because he spoke for me. And they're still saying this as he goes around the country. But because he was pushed out, they voted for Trump. Lots of stuff to think about. So we do need to be politically involved as well, but I know this is not what this group is about, but that's where you can go.
Actually, it's not about it.
Well, but if we all go to our local political club and get involved in endorsing the people running in every office, it will make a difference.
Yeah, got it. Great.
So I'm going to have to close up in about 5 minutes. So Tara, you're up. Oh, no. I said, I promised Katrine. Katrine, we would go in back and forth.
I mean, one thing that hasn't been mentioned with all this enthusiasm is money. You're Commissioner of College of University of Alabama. Let's hope your funding comes through. You know, we all have to eat. And in the end, access has to do, it then reduces people who already have a privileged position, who can afford to do no money theater and self-exploitation, because commercial theater will move to the right. It just will, because that's where the money goes, and the NEA grants and all the other, it will move to the right. So maybe I'm just also exhausted because it's a big show up, and that is not what pays my bills. And one of the companies, co-producing companies, of course, is funding it with an ISCA grant that they got, that is part of their budget. Will they get it again? Who knows? Because New Perspectives Theater Company also is very much about diversity. And so, and I
I'm a little concerned that we're gonna get the voices out, we're gonna, support each other, we're going to go to the UN. I think it's beautiful, and at the same time, what's that gonna do at the UN? We're losing our rule of law. we're like, this is existential, and the money to keep us artists even halfway afloat is already miserable in this country. And it's going to be even worse. And the people who will be able to do art will be, again, people who have the financial wherewithal to do it.
TRU has never had a lot of money. We're a small organization with a very few budget.
You've not been supported by NEA. Right. That is now your freedom.
I know.
But you work your ass off, Bob.
Which is what I was going to be my point. All right.
Let's go to some of them.
Catherine and then Tara.
I agree with you. And I was floored when I was in on an NEA grant meeting, and they said, people kept saying, what are you going to do about the trans situation? And they said, literally, they were just like, we can't do it. But I do want to say this, because I originally came from the film industry, and I'm dealing with the show right now that I'm getting ready to do. And I do know this: we have to use theater people. Think about getting private money from all of the money in the entertainment industry.
I know, I'm in the middle of fundraising.
There's so much fundraising. It's grant money. There's so much money. There's so much money.
There is.
So please.
The Mid-Atlantic Grant Foundation just gone.
We got 2 minutes.
Angel investors.
Think packaging. Think like a film person for theater. That's all I'm going to say.
I have a question to you, Sandy. If we need to end it at 8:30, can Jay keep the room open so people can talk on Zoom? Sure. So if you're on Zoom, if we end at 8:30, it doesn't mean you need to. You can continue talking to each other and sharing whatever your feelings and thoughts are. I think that I said Cheryl was going to be next, then Tara.
Yeah.
Cheryl, you're next.
Mute yourself.
You're muted.
Okay, sorry, I took my hand down, but I didn't put my microphone on. I'm not sure who just said that, but about money. But that's actually what I wanted to raise, is the MacArthur Foundation is increasing its funding over the next couple of years in response to the financial crisis. Also, I don't know that she's going to do this, but I would bet money that Mackenzie Scott, formerly Mackenzie Bezos, will also be increasing money that she puts into various and sundry progressive causes over the next few years. So I agree, there are places, I think people need to be more creative, but I think there are going to be places now, and there will be more places coming, more places and people who are willing to put money into theater and creative arts in the future. We just got to find them. Two, I wanted to bring up in response to what Kevin was saying about, I wish the audience, meaning the Broadway audience, represented our country. Believe me, I do too. I often go into the theater and count people who look like me in the Broadway audience, but pretty much on one hand, and Janelle knows what I'm talking about. But that's something that doesn't mean that we need to sit back and be satisfied with that. That's one of the things I really liked about Hamilton, was they made a point of, it was a ginormous hit show, but they made a point of bringing in broader audiences, like bringing in kids. And I think that Broadway is not necessarily the be all and end all. We don't necessarily have to say that we're targeting, if Broadway doesn't do it, that the rest of us can't. I don't think that's what this means. But I think also, if your work is out there, you need to be creative in terms of getting it to the appropriate audience and bringing in an audience to you. So I think it's like, yes, the Broadway audience may not reflect a lot of us, but one, we don't need to be satisfied with that, and two, we're not all Broadway.
Tara, do you want to squeeze in some last words?
Yeah. So I wanted to actually comment on one of the things that you said and echo back to the cloak of invisibility, if you will. You had said that we had made so much progress in the previous administration, and I think that's why we're seeing the pushback, is because we were being seen more. And I think that while that's good, and that's obviously what we want, but I think there's a danger in that, is when you are seen, you are more easily targeted. And I think that's why we should take advantage of this moment of them trying to socially disappear us, as you said in the chat. There's a very famous wrestler who his He's known for "You Can't See Me." Some of you might have heard of him, John Cena. You know, that the invisibility cloak, I think, is something that we really need to play to our advantage. Well, you know, I self-identify, and I like others too as well. Maybe now's a moment where we pull back a little on that and kind of work as ninjas behind the scene. We can still see each other. We can still work together. We can still make the progress and speak through our art. And I think that can be our biggest weapon. But to not put ourselves, not to say out loud the things that may be obvious, that I'm disabled, or, you know, the color of your skin, to just let those be, and to try to push for respect and not make it, you know, as much about identity as it is about respect. You know, if you see me, if you identify me, however you identify me, just please respect me, and use this moment of invisibility as a moment to try to make progress. And, you know, it's not about putting ourselves out there to be targeted. I think that's not what we were aiming for before. And clearly that's what happened. But I think we have to work with what we're dealt with. And right now, what we're being dealt with is we're clearly under attack. That's why we're having this meeting. And so, you know, how do we get, you know, respect back from the people who are not giving it to us? Do we respond with disrespect back? I would say we should not be reactive. We should unite. And if we have to unite silently behind the scenes and just work and, you know, keep things going. So when our moment is here, we have it.
The point is made and appreciated, and I think we all got it. My tech person is saying he's going to leave, which means we got to turn this off in a second. So I just want to say to my audience, first of all of the ideas and thoughts that were shared tonight will not disappear, because I will put this on YouTube and it will be available for other people to listen to. And I would encourage all of you to share the link when I share it with you, so that other people can hear the conversation. Again, all I really could anticipate for tonight was a conversation. I don't know whether we can solve the world's problems in a town hall, but I think we have a lot of ideas were shared, a lot of energy and optimism, oddly enough, crept in, and so thank you for the optimism, for those of you who added to that. Thank you all for being there. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks to all my panelists, and thank you to Sandy, who has made all this happen, and thank you to Tamara Fika, who is also our tech consultant, who has made this hybrid possible. That's it. And you guys can stay on with Jay and with Cheryl, whoever wants to hang out there.
Thank you.